Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Gamers Podcast. And this is a topic I've been planning to talk about for a couple of weeks now. It's been in my notes, and I figured I'd just come on and talk about it. Today, we're going to be talking about why are video games so expensive. And obviously, everybody has their own different theories because clearly, video games were cheaper and they've gotten increasingly expensive over the years. Um, like even in the 2010s, games were cheaper than they are now because, a number of different reasons on why, a number of different reasons and theories on why games can be so expensive. So we're going to talk about it here today. And I really apologize. I know it happens like a lot of times in my videos, but like my allergies are like really bad today. So sorry if my voice sounds a bit stuffy and I don't sound like 100%. I really apologize for that. This time of year my allergies just get really bad and I get stuffed up and all that stuff. So not necessarily sick, but it's just my allergies this time of year. So, you're probably hearing a few other videos like me all stuffed up and kind of sounding sick, but it's all good though. But I just do apologize for that. So if you could excuse me. But nonetheless, so I have an article up here, but I'm gonna kind of give my own theories and like explanations on why games could potentially be so expensive. Of course, it's probably all the different factors like games nowadays are like 70, 80 bucks, even some of them are like 80 bucks depending on like the deluxe editions. Like I know there's deluxe editions for games or exclusive editions kind of. There's all those different factors. But typically your new game range nowadays is probably like $60 to $70. I know the new Zelda game that just came out, that was like $70 around. So yes, games are very expensive, and I have a few theories myself, and then I'm gonna get to reading this article. So first of all, it's the engines, it's the software. Of course, if it's a big company like Microsoft or Activision, for example, their software and like their editing software and their like software to design the games get more expensive because they want to put out a better product. Of course, they want to put out a better product. So if Microsoft puts out a product of a game, for example, they're going to use an engine or like a editing software and all that stuff to you know it's going to be more expensive, of course, because it's going to cost more to build and to have, and then their staff, they have to pay their staff, and, game companies have to pay their staff, of course, and there's just a number of things that they probably have to pay for, and of course, everything is probably increased, like, in terms of money and, like, how much they pay their staff and all that stuff, so a number of those things can be, simplified in that. Now, the like I said, the engine software and like the software that they actually put the game in and like jumble it up and actually make it a game, that's probably getting more expensive to like have and like use and all that. So it's a number of reasons, and also the publishing probably takes a lot of money, and it's just a lot of things take a lot of money, and it's just one of the reasons why I think that gaming is so expensive nowadays because, you know, if you want a good, let's say, gaming setup, not even like a YouTuber setup, just a gaming setup in general, and I know it's kind of like off topic, it's not necessarily for the games, but if you want a good gaming setup, like, probably cost you like $300, maybe like $250 if I had to guess. Like, if you want a good gaming setup, like, depends on kind of gamer you are. Like me, I had a PlayStation, of course, I'm gonna hopefully get that back soon, but I have a monitor, I have a TV, I have an Xbox, I have a Yeti mic, which actually that broke, but I'm working on getting that fixed. But I do have a Yeti mic. I do have a couple of other mics that I record with. I have like a number of things, and on top of that, also just stuff that I game with. Like I have a headset. I have a number of different video games that I play. So it's and all of that, of course, was not cheap. Um, and that's just kind of the basis of. And I'm not a professional YouTuber by the any standards. Like I don't have 100% professional gear. I literally just record on my phone, and occasionally, I'll record on other things. But, I'm not a professional YouTuber by any stretch of the imagination. So I pretty much just that's the basis, and all that stuff was not cheap. Is what I'm trying to say. So gaming setup alone, if you want a good gaming setup alone, that's expensive. On top of that, if you want to buy any of the games you want, that's also pretty expensive. So that was kind of my point with that. And also, just kind of going off topic here, it's more like gaming itself, not games. Like, I'm really pretty much like kind of strictly talking about games, but gaming itself has gotten so expensive. Like, when you want to have a setup, it's not cheap to get a good setup, like for a good, good gaming setup. Like, if you want to buy a PC, if you want to have a PC setup, that's not really cheap. Like a lot of different stuff are so very expensive if you want to like actually have a good gaming setup. Now, I'm not saying my gaming setup is great and it cost me like $1 million or anything like that, of course, but you know, it's a good setup in my opinion. Now, other people may have different setups. It's more of my preference setup. It's easy for me to access my different things that I have, and it's just easier for me, and it's more convenient for me. Of course, everybody has different setups. But my point in saying again is, if you want a good gaming setup, it'll cost you. It's not cheap, and of course, gaming setups weren't really a big thing back in. I know I'm talking about like the old days, but back in like 2008, 2009, and when gaming was around still back then. Of course, growing up, gaming setups weren't really that big of a deal. I mean, when I was like, what, 9 or 10 years old, I just put myself on the couch and I just played whatever Xbox, whatever game I had, and it wasn't really a huge setup thing. But now, like, of course, gaming is getting taken more seriously. You get paid to game on certain occasions, like you get paid to stream games, like on Twitch, YouTube, like you get paid for that kind of stuff. So gaming, of course, is becoming a lot bigger of a industry, and in the past few years, it's becoming a lot bigger of an industry, and you get paid for that kind of stuff. So you have to get your equipment more intact, and you have to, have a bigger setup, because, like I said before, in the old days, it didn't really matter because, I say the old days, but back in like 2009, tens and all that, it didn't really matter because you were never going to get paid for that kind of stuff. But nowadays you do, and now it really matters. So, man, I really sound stuffy in that. I really apologize for me sounding like super stuffy. I apologize for that, like I said. But let's get to reading this article. It's just kind of an article on why are games so expensive. It kind of gives their reasons from thegamer.com. Everyone would agree that games are too expensive now, and when I say everyone, I mean everyone. Whether it's indie developers trying to scrape together the cash to stay afloat, major studios attempting to push the envelope, publishers trying to make a profit, or regular gamers staring at their wallets, games cost too much money. This is an issue I think about a lot. So there were two news stories over the past weekend which caught my eye. The first was that the CMA Activision Microsoft merger report claimed that AAA projects can now have budgets that go into the billions. The second was that the $70 price point is putting a lot of players off buying new games. Together, these two stories paint a picture of an unsustainable future for gaming. The CMA is basing off this publisher claims rather than the listed budgets, but it's easy to believe that this will be the case in the future. If it's not already, CD Projekt Red spent $316 million on making Cyberpunk 2077, and that's before you account for the astronomical marketing modern Call of Duty games, cost around the same as the Callisto Protocol, considered to be a mid or AAA game. Had a development cost of $162 million, Genshin Impact's ongoing development and supporting total around $500 million. And one unnamed studio in the CMA report that had a development of budget of $660 million with a marketing cost of almost $550 million for those making them. Games are just too expensive. And as for the players, it's unsurprising that the increased price point is putting them off. It's near impossible to factor what the game is worth compared to what they were sold for 20 years ago, because if you don't look at inflation, but also wage stagnation, the changing demographic of gamers, the increase in technology, the difference in narrative and graphical quality, the longer play times, but also the rise in patches, broken launches, microtransactions, online subscriptions, the whole media landscape has changed. It's impossible to compare a video game released today to a video game released in the 1990s. And that's pretty much what I was saying. Like, it's not really like the old days. Argument is they're paying all this money for, not for all games, but for certain games, like they're paying all this money and they're not getting a good game. They're getting like a really crappy game, and it's just not worth the amount of money they're paying. I could see where they're coming from 100%, and with certain games, that's just how it is. So, I'm going to go further into the article here. This is not to argue that the $70 price point is fair, which is, again, like I said, the typical price you're going to get for the games nowadays. If it doesn't make sense for your audience, then it's not fair. That's the bottom line here. I only mean you can crunch the numbers however you like and determine that $70 is too low, too high, or just right. Usually it's whichever answer you already thought. What are the chances? Studios and publishers can point to these increased budgets and offer a defense of the $70 price, along with often stuffing their games with pointless filler that adds hours onto the playtime, but ultimately makes the game worse. These are times when these high development prices seem worth it, and everyone just goes about their lives. It's already been a decade since the last GTA game. The next one is still years away. With just Red Dead Redemption 2 in the middle, Naughty Dog released The Last of Us a decade ago, and in the time window this only brought us Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2, as fully fledged releases as some of the remasters, expansions, or spin-offs, and collections, of course, only say that it really only feels insulting. GTA 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, and The Last of Us Part 2 would all be contenders for the top 10 games released since 2013. Studios are taking their time and spending a lot of cash, but they're making masterpieces. Now, the price for The Last of Us Part 2, I can't argue with that because that game, in my opinion, was an absolute masterpiece. So, when it's a good game you're getting, I think it's worth every penny. But when a lot of games nowadays are charging 70, $80, and it's just not worth the amount that people are paying because it's not a good game. And that's I think that's their point, and that's also my point. I agree with them 100%. Except for when most of them aren't. We are seeing games be delayed for months and even years, have huge budgets, and be sold at full price, and still end up pretty average. At the best, the Callisto Protocol, with 162 million thrown at it, scored a disappointing 70 on Metacritic and did not meet sales expectations. Gotham Knights, arriving 9 years after the developer WB Games Montreal's last game with heavy marketing, not to mention the obvious cost for its franchise, scored a near unheard for score of AAA games at 64 and flopped commercially. The stars do not seem to align for the Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League either. It doesn't matter that these games aren't as good as Red Dead Redemption 2, or at least it shouldn't, but when their costs run in 9 figures and they have development cycles that mean they take longer than medical school, they kind of need to be. Modern game development means every studio is always seeking to make a masterpiece, it's always paying for it, and it's always charging for it. Even in a medium where the critics are generous with perfect scores, they often fall short, but they've already paid for it, so they're still going to charge you for it. And that's pretty much the end of the article, or at least all I wanted to read. So, yeah. The article pretty much describes pretty much what I wanted to say, and I 100% agree with said article. It's, games are very expensive, and it's not worth the price they're getting because the product you're going to get is not worth the price. Because a lot of games, you buy it for like $70, $80, $60, whatever, and it's a horrible game and it's not worth the price. So there goes your $60, $70 for a game that you're not even going to enjoy because it sucks. Pretty much, just to put it plainly, it's a sucky game because it's not worth the price you're paying. And a lot of people do get refunds, but the price that they're selling it for the product is pretty much outrageous. I mean, in my opinion. Now, for certain games like The Last of Us, in my opinion, that price was very called for. It was called for, and that game turned out to be great. Like, if you have a good game, I think you could sell it for $70. Now, I'm not saying that's an excuse to sell for however amount you want, but you could sell a game for $70. I will buy a game for $70, and if I enjoy it and I think it's a great game, and I love the game 100%, I think it's, if I think it's good, I think it's worth the price. It's really with me, not really other people. I like to determine whether it's a good game or not, and it's worth the price because that's just me. Of course, everybody has their different opinions, but if I buy a game and I play it, I could say whether or not it was worth the $70 price. For example, $70. I can say whether or not it was worth the $70 price. So if I play a game, hey, this is worth the $70. No, they should not be charging this for $70. It's a horrible game. So that's pretty much my basis here. And I honestly think the games are only probably going to get more expensive. I really don't know how they could get any more expensive, but like some games, like when I had my PlayStation, I bought NBA 2K23 because I haven't bought a 2K game in a while. It was $60 for the PS5 version and the PS5 version only. I play with a lot of friends on PS4, so if I wanted to pay, because I found out after I bought the game, of course. So it's really ridiculous. If I wanted to play 2K23 with my friends that play on PS4, I have to pay I think it was like $75 or something, like for the deluxe edition, which comes with the 2K23 PS4 version. So if I want to play with friends on PS4, it's an extra like $15, which I think is ridiculous. I think it should come with the PS5 version and the PS4 version standard. So that's just an example of games being too expensive. And I know the Show 23, which actually Game Player guys we're watching right now, I love the Show 23, but if you want to buy like the Diamond Pack or something like that, it's at least $100. I've seen like it be $100 sometimes, so that's outrageously expensive. It's for the deluxe edition, of course, but if you want that, you're gonna have to pay $100, which of course is not cheap. So, that's just kind of my basis. And sports games are pretty expensive too, in my opinion. But that's pretty much all I have to say. I really more or less went on a rant and all that stuff. But it's good to get that out there, in my opinion. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that games are way too expensive nowadays, or like $60, $70 is a fair price, or are games going to get more expensive? Are they not? Are they going to kind of stay in the same price range? Don't know, but let's discuss down in the comment section. Let's go. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So make sure to subscribe for more content, like the video, all the good stuff. Discord, Twitch, Instagram, links in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next video.